This is the reassembly video for the Galaxy Note 2. It's the third and final step after you've applied the UV glue and installed the new glass. So after you've let the glue cure for 3 to 4 hours in a strong light source, preferably sunlight or pure UV light, we have to make sure that we clean off all the UV glue that may have seeped out right here, all the way around. We need to clean out the UV glue that may have gotten into the camera lens, the proximity sensor lens, and the ear speaker. In the next coming days, as you go out with your phone and it's exposed to sunlight, or if you set it on your desk and there's a fluorescent lamp above it, and when it gets exposed to light in general, the UV glue is very sensitive to light, and it will expand, and it might get into your ear speaker here, it might get into your home button, it might expand into the camera lens, the proximity sensor lens. All you have to do is watch the disassembly video again, and you don't have to remove the charging port or the ear speaker this time. I'm sorry, the loudspeaker. All you have to do is remove the motherboard and these components so you can access the speaker mesh and use your Phillips screwdriver or a needle or a toothpick, something to scrape out the UV glue, and use a Q-tip with some rubbing alcohol to clean out this camera lens, the proximity sensor lens. Sometimes the UV glue will expand into your home button. To remedy that, you have to put a few drops of rubbing alcohol on the home button and use a Q-tip to scrub it really hard. That breaks apart the UV glue and is a solution to that problem. Sometimes the UV glue does expand into this home power button right here. Again, just open it, clean up that UV glue. So let's go ahead and put this phone back together. Their first step is to replace all of these components that we removed earlier. Let's go ahead and put the headphone jack and ear speaker back into place, like so. Actually, before we do that, let's go ahead and take off the rubber bumper that's on it. This is not really necessary. If you don't take it off, it's going to be problematic because you're not going to be able to put the back plate back on correctly. So let's remove that. You can throw that away, set it aside. So let's go ahead and install the headphone jack again. And let's look for one of those 3 short screws. Let's put back the front-facing camera and proximity sensor. Let's put the shield back on it. The shield goes in this way first, like that. Let's find another one of those 3 short screws. Let's go ahead and replace the charging port. And let's go ahead and put that antenna back. Make sure that it runs through this groove designed for it. If it doesn't, then your housing, your backplate mid-frame is not going to sit flush. Let's go ahead and put that charging port back in. Let's reconnect that antenna. Very carefully. Back onto its connector. Okay, at this point, let's go ahead and put the motherboard back onto the assembly. The same way we made sure that these flex cables were out of the way when we removed the motherboard, let's make sure that everything is out of the way when we want to put it back on. Let's make sure that this flex cable is freed from under the motherboard. Make sure that this flex cable is not under it. Make sure that there's nothing that obstructs the motherboard. If you kept your motherboard in your back cover along with all the screws and other components like I do, make sure that there's no screws under the motherboard. That's very important. If you put everything back on and you want to secure this back plate, once you tighten everything, you might crack the motherboard. That's not good. Okay, so let's reconnect the flex cable for the charging port. Let's reconnect this flex cable right here. Let's connect this antenna very carefully. Let's reconnect the flex cable for the LCD. The flex cable for the headphone jack and the ear speaker. The flex cable for the front facing camera and proximity sensor. The flex cable for the LCD ground. Let's reconnect the flex cable for the power button. Make sure that this flex cable is also in its groove like the antenna and it's not outside. Go ahead and reconnect that. It's this connector right here. I don't know why there's a connector here when nothing goes onto it, connects to it. So let's put back the speaker module. Remember, the screw for the speaker module is one of the short screws, and it goes right here. Don't put it here because that's the hole for one of the screws that secures down this back plate. Again, make sure everything is connected really well. Okay, at this point, let's go ahead and replace that screw, the black screw that secures the motherboard, right here. If you're ever unsure of which hole it is for this black screw, just go take the back plate, kind of line it up with the assembly, and then lift it back up, and there it is. There's no hole here, so it has to be that one. Depending on what carrier Note 2 you have, this one is for T-Mobile. If you have one for Verizon or Sprint, etc., the location of this black screw may be a bit different. So that's why you need to utilize this method of putting the housing on to remember where the black screw goes. Okay, at this point, we can go ahead and put the back plate back on. And to do so, we just have to snap it back into place. If you want to replace, like this one is a little bit beat up. If I can focus the camera. It's just a bit scratched up right there. If you ever want to replace this middle frame, you can find the part on our partner's website in the description. In the unlikely event that you damage your LCD, you can purchase a replacement LCD on our partner's website and use coupon code SmartKit for a $30 discount. At this point, we have to replace the SIM card. Make sure it clicks. Replace the battery. Turn the phone on before you replace the 11 screws we removed earlier to make sure everything works. This phone is dead, but I know it works. replace the stylus, and then replace each of the 11 screws that you removed. It's very important that you do this step by hand. If you used a drill gun to remove the screws earlier, use a screwdriver to tighten them. You don't want to risk cracking the LCD